Our progress report says we are at stage 6, paragraph page 477,
Yep.
and our last headword was elect, new word type of
Uh,
lesson.
y- yep.
Okay, so let's start with your revision. Ready?
Mm, yes.
Okay, here we go. First question. By what means do you come to school? By what means do you come to school? I come to school
I come to
by.
school by train.
Very good. Would you rather have your own means of transport than use public transport? Would you rather have your own means of transport than use public transport? Yes or no?
No,
I wouldn't rather
I
have
wouldn't
my
rather
own
have
means
my
of
own
transport
means of
than use
transport
public
than
transport.
use public transport
Why not? Why not? Because
because it's easier
and cheaper, right?
and
Very
cheaper.
good.
Yeah, right.
Parking is expensive. Okay.
Mm.
As a means of making money, what would you say was the best way? As a means of making money, what would you say was the best way? As a means of
As a
making
means
money,
of making
I'd say
money,
the best
I'd
way
say
was
the best way was work hard,
working hard.
working
Very good.
hard.
And do the lottery, maybe. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. What's the best way to maintain a good figure? What's the best way to maintain a good figure? The best way
The
to
best way
maintain a
to
good
maintain a
figure
good
is
figure
to.
is to uh, exercise regularly.
Very good. Who do you think was the greatest figure in history? Who do you think was the greatest figure in history? I think
I think Einstein
was the greatest figure
was the greatest
in
figure
history.
in history.
How many figures are there in the number of your house? How many figures are there in the number of your house? There are
There are three
in the
figures
number
in
of
the
my house.
number of my house.
What kind of figure am I drawing in the air with my finger? What kind of figure am I drawing in the air with my finger? You're drawing a
You're
circle
drawing a
in the
circle
air with your
in the
finger.
air with your finger.
Very good. If a couple can't have a child, what can they do? If a couple can't have a child, what can they do? If a couple
If a
can't have a
couple
child,
can't have a
they can
child,
adopt one.
they can adopt one.
If you want to live in another country, do you think you'd quickly adopt the way of living in that country? If you want to live in another country, do you think you'd quickly adopt the way of living in that country? Yes or no?
Yes,
If I went to live
if I
in
went to
another
live
country,
in another
I think
country,
I'd
I
quickly
think
adopt
I'd quickly
the
adopt
way of living
the way of
in that
living
country.
in that country
Why? Why do you think so? Because?
because I'm flexible.
Very good. Okay, next. Who do you think was the cruelest character in history? Who do you think was the cruelest character in history? I think
I think the coolest character.
maybe Hitler. I think
Uh,
Hitler
Hitler
was the
was the
cruelest character
cruelest
in
character in
history.
history.
Very good. What's a college? What's a college? A college
A
is a
college
kind of
is a
school
kind of
or
school
part of a
or part
university.
of a university.
Very good. If we put a piece of wood or paper into a flame, what happens to it? If we put a piece of wood or paper onto flame, what happens to it? If we put a
If
piece
we
of wood
put a piece
or
of
paper
wood or
into a
paper
flame,
into a
it
flame,
burns.
it burns.
Very good. What are the three forms of run? What are the three forms of run? The three forms
The
of
three
run
forms of
are run,
run are
ran, run.
run, down, run.
What's the furthest you've ever run? What's the furthest you've ever run? The furthest I've
The
ever
furthest
run
I've ever
is,
run is 42 kilometers.
wow, it's very far marathon. Okay,
Yeah.
next. What does the verb to grow mean in Japanese? What does the verb to grow mean in Japanese? The verb to
The
grow
verb
means
to grow means 成長する
in
in
Japanese.
Japanese.
Very good. What are the three forms of grow? What are the three forms of grow? The three
The
forms of
three
grow
forms
are
of grow
grow,
are
grew,
grow,
grown.
grew, grown.
At about what age does the average person stop growing physically? At about what age does the average person stop growing physically? The average person
The average
stops
person
growing
stops
physically
growing
at
physically
about
at about 20 years.
20 years old.
20
Very.
years old.
If you grew tired, what did you do? If you grew tired, what did you do? If I grew tired,
If I grew
I'd go
tired,
to bed and sleep,
I go to bed and
or
sleep
sit down and rest,
or
or sit
or
down and rest. Sit down
sit down and
and rest.
rest.
Very good. One more. If I grew tired,
If I grew
I'd go
tired,
to bed and
I go
sleep,
to bed and
or sit
sleep,
down
or
and
sit
rest
down in rest
and rest. Very good.
and rest.
What kind of food is grown most of all in your part of the world? What kind of food is grown most of all in your part of the world? The kind of food
The kind of
that's grown
food
most
that
of all.
grown or m-
One
most of
more. The kind of food
the kind of
that's
food
grown
that's
most of
grown
all
most of all
in my part of the
in
world
my part of the world
is
is rice.
rice. Very good. What does the word matter mean in Japanese? What does the word matter mean in Japanese? The word matter
The
means
word mata means 出来事 in
in
Japanese.
Japanese. Very good. What kind of matter is this book made of? What kind of matter is this book made of? That book is
That
made
book
of
is
paper.
made of paper.
Very good. Do you think that the possibility of another world war is a serious matter? Do you think the possibility of another world war is a serious matter? Yes or no? I
Yes,
think that
I think
the
that
possibility
the
of another
possibility
world
of
war
another world
is a
war
serious matter.
is a serious matter.
Are you interested in political matters? Are you interested in political matters? Yes or no? I'm
No,
not
I'm
interested
not
in
interested
political
in
matters.
political matters.
Very good. How long do you expect to continue living in the place where you live now? How long do you expect to continue living in the place where you live now? I expect to
I
continue
expect to
living in the
continue
place
living
where
in
I
the
live
place
now
where I live
for
now
about
for about 20 years,
20 more years.
20 more years.
Very good. In a Callan Method lesson, do you expect the teacher to correct the student's mistake? In a Callan Method lesson, do you expect the teacher to correct the student's mistake? Yes. In a Callan
Yes, in
Method
a
lesson,
current method
I
lesson,
expect the
I
teacher
expect
to
the
correct the
teacher to
student's
correct
mistake.
the student's mistake.
Very good. What do we use or when do we use a tail question? When do we use a tail question? We use a
We
tail
use a
question
tell
when we
question
believe
when we
something is
believe
true
something is
and we
true
want
and
somebody
we want
to confirm
somebody to
that we are
confirm
right.
that we are right.
How do we form a tail question? How do we form a tail question? We form a
We
tail
form
question
a tell
by
question
repeating the
by
first
repeating
auxiliary
the
verb.
first auxiliary verb,
Like with the okay, auxiliary verb
auxiliary verb
from the main part
from the
of the
main
sentence
part of the
and
sentence
putting it in
and
question
putting it
form.
in question form.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. He is going to
He's
go out
going
tonight,
to go out
isn't
tonight,
he?
isn't he?
Very good. Okay, now I'll say something and I want you to repeat it and add a tail question. Okay, remember that if the main part of the sentence is positive, the tail question is negative and vice versa. Okay, here we go. He's a young man. He's a young man. He's a young man.
He's a young
Isn't he?
man, isn't he?
He isn't a young man. He isn't a young man. He isn't a
He
young man.
isn't a young
Is
man,
he?
is he?
You've got a very nice kitchen. You've got a very nice kitchen. You've got a
You've
very
got
nice kitchen.
a very nice kitchen.
Haven't you?
Have you? Haven't
Haven't
you?
you? You haven't got a very nice kitchen. You haven't got a very nice kitchen. You haven't got
You
a
haven't
very
got
nice
a
kitchen.
very nice
Positive.
kitchen,
Have
have
you?
you?
Very good. You can sing. You can sing. You can sing.
You can
Can't you?
sing, can't you?
You can't sing. You can't sing. You can't sing.
You
Can
can
you?
sing, can you?
He'll be afraid. He'll be afraid. He'll be afraid.
He'll be
Won't
afraid,
he?
won't he?
He won't be afraid. He won't be afraid. He won't be
He
afraid.
won't be afraid, will he?
They would be hungry. They would be hungry. They would be
They
hungry.
would be hungry, wouldn't he? Wouldn't they?
They wouldn't be hungry. They wouldn't be hungry. They wouldn't be
They
hungry.
wouldn't be hungry, would they?
Very good. When there is no auxiliary verb in the main part of the sentence, which verb do we use in the tail question? When there is no auxiliary verb in the main part of the sentence, which verb do we use in the tail question? When there is no
When there's
auxiliary
no
verb
auxiliary
in
verb
the main part of
in
the
the main
sentence,
part of the
we use
sentence,
do in
we
the tail
use
question.
do in the tell question.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. They come every
They
Thursday,
come
don't
every
they?
Thursday, don't they?
Very good. If you had the right by law to do whatever you wished, what did you do? If you had the right by law to do whatever you wish, what did you do? If I had the right
If I
by
had
law
a right
to
by
do
law
whatever
to
I wish,
do whatever I
I'd
wish, I'd
I'd never pay
I
tax again.
yeah.
Yeah, is that the one? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd never
yeah,
pay
yeah.
tax
I'd
again.
never pay tax again.
That will be a big saving. Okay.
Yeah.
The newspaper have the legal right to print stories that aren't true. The newspapers have the legal right to print stories that aren't true? No.
No, the
Newspapers don't have the
newspapers
legal
don't
right
have the legal
to print
right
stories
to print
that aren't
stories
true.
that aren't true.
Greg, what's the difference between the words on and onto? What's the difference between the words on and onto? The difference
The
between the
difference
words on
between the
and
words
onto
on and
is that
onto
we can
is
use the
that
word
we can
on
use the word
for things
on
that are
for
moving
things
or
that are
still,
moving or still,
whereas we can use the
whereas we
word
can use
onto
the word
only
onto
for things
only for
that are
things
moving.
that are moving.
Do you think you could jump onto the table with both your feet together? Do you think you can jump onto the table with both your feet together? Yes or no? I
No,
don't think
I
I
don't
could jump
think
onto
I
the
could
table
jump onto the
with both my
table
feet
with
together.
both my feet
Yeah,
together.
me neither. Have you ever tried to do something like that? Have you ever tried to do something like that? Yes or no?
No,
I've never
I've
tried to
never
do
tried
anything
to
like that.
do anything like that.
Me. Next, do you know how to tie a tie? Do you know how to tie a tie? Yes or no?
Yes,
I know how
I
to tie
know
a
how
tie.
to tie a tie.
In the past, was the government of a country generally elected by the people? In the past, was the government of a country generally elected by the people? No. In the
No,
past,
in the
the
past,
government of a
the
country
government of a
wasn't
country
generally elected
wasn't generally
by the
elected
people.
by the people.
Very good. Okay, and that's the end of our revision. Let's have new work.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's start. Okay, repeat. To have something done.
To have something done,
Very homework.
homework.
Very good. So, listen, the structure to have something done, to do something, communicates that we do not do the action ourselves, but that somebody else do it for us. For example, I do not cut my hair. I have my hair cut by the hairdresser, so have something done, my haircut. Instead of saying John is going to repair my computer for me, we can say I'm going to have my computer repaired by John. So that's passive. Okay. Homework is a noun. It is a work that a student at school is asked to do at home. For example, the teacher gave us a lot of homework. Let's practice. What does the structure to have something done communicate? What does the structure to have something done communicate? The structure
The
to have
structure
something
to
done
have something
communicates
done
that we don't
communicates
do
that
the
we
action
don't do the
ourselves,
action
but that
ourselves,
somebody
but
else
that somebody
does it
else
for us.
does it for us.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I don't cut my
I don't
hair
have
myself.
my hair
I have my
myself.
hair cut
I have my hair cut
by a hairdresser.
uh, by a hairdresser.
Reggie, do you clean your shoes yourself or do you have them cleaned by someone else? Do you clean your shoes yourself or do you have them cleaned by someone else? I
I
my
clean
shoes myself.
I clean my shoes myself.
Very good. Okay. Next, listen. Instead of the verb to have, we can use the verb to get. Okay. Instead of to have, we can say to get. For example, I have my haircut yesterday, or I got my haircut yesterday. Okay. Let's practice. What can we use instead of the verb to have? What can we use instead of the verb to have? We can use
We
the
can
verb to get
use the verb to
instead
get
of the verb
instead
to
of
have.
the verb to have.
Right? Do very young children sometimes get their homework done for them by their parents? Do very young children sometimes get their homework done for them by their parents? Yes, very young
Yes,
children
very young children
sometimes get their
sometimes
homework
get
done
their
for them
homework done for
by
them
their parents.
by their parents.
Usually happens here. Next, repeat power,
Tower,
powerful,
powerful,
laptop,
laptop,
desktop.
desktop.
Very good. Okay, listen, power is a noun. It means the ability to write or right to control people or things. For example, The government generally has too much power. Power also means electricity. Powerful is an adjective. It means having a lot of power to control people and events. For example, the president is the most powerful person in my country. In Japan, the prime minister is the most powerful person. Laptop is a noun. It is a small computer that you can carry with you. For example, I always take my laptop when I travel. Desktop is a noun. It is a computer that is designed to be used on a desk or table and not carried around because it's too big. For example, at the moment I am using a desktop for this lesson. Laptops don't use more power than desktop computers. Let's practice. Do you think governments generally have too much power? Do you think governments generally have too much power? Yes or no?
Yes.
I think
I
governments
think
generally
governments
have too much
generally
power.
have too much power.
Very good. Who do you think is the most powerful person in your country? Who do you think is the most powerful person in your country? I think the
I
prime
think
minister
the prime
is the
minister
most
is the
powerful
most
person
powerful
in
person
my country.
in my country.
Do laptops use more power than desktop computers? Do laptops use more power than desktop computers? No.
No,
Laptops don't use
laptops
more
don't
power
use more
than
power
desktop
than
computers.
desktop computers.
Very good. Next, repeat. Save.
Stay,
Save.
stay, st- save,
Save.
save, save,
Rescue.
rescue,
Protect.
protect,
Spend.
spend.
Very good. Okay, listen. The verb save can mean to keep for the future, to save, to rescue, to protect, and to spend less. Okay, let's practice. Do you spend all your money or do you save some and put it in the bank? Do you spend all your money or do you try to save some and put it in the bank? I spend all my
I
no.
spend
I don't
all
spend I don't
I don't
spend
spend
all my money.
all my
I try
money.
to save some
I try to
and
save
put it
some
in the bank.
and put it in the bank.
Greg, if you saw someone in difficulty in the sea, how would you try to save their life? If you saw someone in difficulty in the sea, how would you try to save their life? If I saw
If
someone
I saw
in
someone
difficulty in the
in
sea,
difficulty in the
I
sea,
try to save
I
their
try
life
to save their
by
lives by
how do you save their life?
res-
By rescuing
rescuing
them.
rescuing them.
Very good. Okay. What does an old man carry to save himself from falling over while walking? What does an old man carry to save himself from falling over while walking? An old man
An old
carries a
man
walking stick
carries a walking
to
stick
save himself
to save
from
himself
falling over
from
while walking.
falling over while walking.
Very good. Would you save any time if you use a different means of transport to come to school? Would you save any time if you use a different means of transport to come to school? Yes or no?
No,
I wouldn't save
I
any
wouldn't
time
save any
if I
time
used a
if I
different
used
means
a
of
different
transport
means of
to come
transport
to school.
to come to school.
When you close a computer program, does it usually remind you to save your work first? When you close a computer program, does it usually remind you to save your work first? Yes. When I
Yes,
close
when
a
I
computer
close a
program,
computer
it
program,
usually reminds
it
me
usually
to
reminds
save
me
my work
to
first.
save my work first.
Very good. Next, repeat. Trade.
Trade,
Tradesman.
tradesman,
Skill.
skill,
Bake.
bake,
Baker.
baker,
Butcher.
butcher,
Builder.
builder.
Very good. Okay, listen. Trade. The word trade is a verb. It means to give something in exchange for something else. Trade. For example, my countries mainly trade in dried mango, sugar, etc. Tradesman is a noun. It is someone who works at a job or trade that involves skill with your hands. Some examples of tradesmen are baker, builders, technicians, etc. Skill is a noun. It is an ability to do something well, especially because you have learned and practiced it. So it means skill can be learned. Okay, for example, many job requires computer skills. Bake is a verb. It is to cook something using dry heat in an oven. For example, I like baking bread and cakes. Baker is someone who bakes bread and cakes especially in order to sell them in a shop. For example, my aunt bakes cake very well. She's a good baker. Butcher is a noun. It is someone who owns or works in a shop that sells meat. Builder is a noun. It is a person or a company that builds or repairs things such as houses, ships, bridges, etc., like engineering firm. For example, I need to get the builder to repair the wall of my house. Okay, let's practice. What kind of things does your country mainly trade in? What kind of things does your country mainly trade in? The kind of things
The kind of
that my
things
country
that my
mainly
country
trade in
mainly trade
is
in is mm, rice,
rice or cars. So many cars, right? Okay,
cars. Yeah.
very good. Okay, next, listen. By a trade, when we say a trade, we usually mean a job that a person does mainly with their hands and for which they need a special skill. Let's practice. What do we usually mean by a trade? What do we usually mean by a trade? By a trade,
By a
we
trade,
usually mean
we
a
usually
job
mean a
that a
job
person
that a
does
person
mainly with their
does
hands
mainly with their
and
hands
for which
and for
they need a
which
special
they
skill.
need a special skill.
Well, what's one of the best paid trades in your country? What's one of the best paid trades in your country? One of the best
One of
paid
the best
trades in my
paid
country
trades in my country
is a builder.
is a builder.
Very good. Okay, now let's move on to our reading.
Okay.
Very good. So our reading is at stage five. Okay, stage five, paragraph page 284. Okay,
84.
let me check. Stage five, 384. Okay, and our last headword was borrow. Okay, start with the
Okay.
next headword.
Okay.
My own.
My own. Emphasize. Give me an example of the word own after a possessive adjective. This is my own book. Do you live in your own house or does it belong to somebody else? No, I don't live in my own house. It belongs to somebody else. Do you think this is probably my own book or do you think it belongs to the school? I think that's probably your own book. Skin. What's this? It's your skin. Wire, electricity, connection, wireless, Wi-Fi, hyphen. What do we use wire for? We use wire to carry electricity, to connect things together, etc. What do we mean by a wireless internet connection? By a wireless internet connection, we mean that we can connect to the internet without connecting wires to our computer. What can we say instead of a wireless internet connection? Instead of a wireless internet connection, we can say Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Do some bars and cafes offer free Wi-Fi to their customers? Yes, some bars and cafes offer free Wi-Fi to their customers. Spell the word Wi-Fi, please. W-I-F-I. Boil, fry, roast. Tell me three ways of cooking potatoes. Three ways of cooking potatoes are boiling, frying, and roasting. Do you prefer fried eggs or boiled eggs? I prefer boiled eggs. How long does it take to boil potatoes? It takes about 20 minutes to boil potatoes. Brick. What's a wall normally built of? A wall is normally built of bricks.
386
Uh,
as well.
as well, too, also. Where do the words as well, too, and also usually go? The words as well and too go at the end of the sentence, but the word also usually goes after the first auxiliary verb. Give me an example of each, please. I will be sleeping at 3 a.m. My sister will be sleeping as well. My mother will be sleeping too. My brother will also be sleeping.
Very good. Okay, so we stop there for today.
Okay.